the left media, the liberal media, the Democrat Party continues to foment violence with an obsession against Donald Trump. We cannot be surprised when people take that serious and say we must eliminate that threat. That kind of behavior, not only is it disgusting, it looks like Mexico, where dozens of politicians were killed.
You woke? Time to get up. Hey folks, welcome to Thought Your World No Speed Limit Podcast. I'm your host, Alvin. I hope you guys are having a terrific day. I just want to remind you of one thing, to make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. I just want to tell you, as I always do, I appreciate you guys listening, commenting, your opinions and your comments matter to me as well. So, y'all know what happened this weekend. Donald Trump. There was an attempt on Donald Trump's life at the Pennsylvania rally. Young man in his 20s, another mass shooter. And I'm going to talk about several issues here because I think this is the opportunity to talk about those issues that surround this. This young man, of course, was able to somehow get on top of a building where supposedly there were Secret Service inside the building, but not on top of the building where they're supposed to be, or police officers. Was able to get on top of the building and take shots at Trump. Fortunately, it missed Trump. He did get nicked on the ear by a bullet. Unfortunately, someone else was killed, and two other people were injured at that particular rally. And my prayers goes out to those families. Prayer goes out to Trump family as well. Praying for all the people that were there. But that shouldn't stop our campaign. The campaign shouldn't stop people from talking about the issues that are important to this country. We paused for a moment to catch our breath because of what happened, but we shouldn't stop because of that. Because the Republican parties, that's why I just showed the video of Tim Scott. They're going on doing what they're going to do. They're going to use this and take advantage of this as an opportunity to attack Democrats and liberals in the media and everybody else they possibly can. In fact, just look at the vice presidential candidate that Donald Trump picked.
Post, Republican U.S. Senator J.D. Vance posted the following, saying, quote, "Today is not just some isolated incident. The central premise of the Biden campaign is that President Donald Trump is an authoritarian fascist who must be stopped at all costs. That rhetoric led directly to President Trump's attempted assassination."
So the current political situation has made it very easy to blame Biden for everything that's going on, all this, the violence and all those things going on, because we keep hearing this word from Biden, like the danger of Trump. You know, he said this kind of put a bullseye or a target on Trump's back, and so they're using that key word that he said as saying that he is the one who set this up. J.D. Vance said that, you know, Biden's rhetoric is what caused this. Now, there was another congressman who said that basically that Biden was responsible directly for this, that he called for this. Now, that was taking it a little too far, saying that he was directly responsible for this, that he called for the assassination attempt on Trump's life. That was false. Not true at all, I don't believe. There are a lot of weird things that happened during this. The fact that that particular building was not covered properly by the Secret Service or local police, that this man was being called out by people. Now it comes to find out that a police officer confronted him but ducked his head down because the man pointed a gun at him. And then that time, right after that, he shot those 8 shots. So we know that something happened here, okay? We know that this is terrible and awful. This is just one of those situations where, you know, that was a horrible thing that happened. And yes, I guess you can blame some of the rhetoric for it, because I don't. But here's the thing. That young man, was a registered Republican. Apparently, he made one donation back a few years ago to a Democratic organization that was about, or an organization that supports the Democratic Party that was about voting. They're looking at his phone right now, so we'll get more information about him. We don't really have any information about his motivation or who he talked to or if anybody else was involved. They're trying to figure this all out. We know the man had a lot of MOs, like a lot of mass shooters. He had these little improvised explosive devices. He decided to take his father's AR-15 and go to this particular venue and shoot at people. This is another issue we don't talk about in the Republican Party. It's about gun violence, right? So, they're big lovers of the Second Amendment. They talk about the right to bear arms. Pennsylvania is an open carry state. This man was allowed to carry the gun. You can only stop it so far. You can say, hey, look, you're allowed to carry the gun, but you're not allowed to go here, there, and there for that particular event. But that made him more of a threat than anything else, because anybody in that crowd could have had a gun in that case. They didn't. The Secret Service wouldn't allow guns inside the event. That's why that man was where he was on the roof. But that's beside the point. However, like I said, back to the main case, back to the main situation here. Biden is always the one that they're going to point the finger at because he's the one running for president against Donald Trump. But watch this video right here.
It was a time when we used to meet evil on the battlefield, and guess what we did to it? We killed it. We didn't quibble about it. We didn't argue about it. We didn't fight about it. We killed it. When the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, what did we do? We flew to Japan, and we killed the Japanese Army and Navy. We didn't even quibble about it. I didn't start this fight. You did. You wanted to be left alone. You should have left me alone. We didn't argue and capitulate and talk about, well, maybe we shouldn't fight the Nazis that hard. No, they're bad. Kill them. Some liberal somewhere is going to say that sounds awful. Too bad. Get mad at me if you want to. Some folks need killing. It's time for somebody to say it. It's not a matter of vengeance. It's not a matter of being mean or spiteful. It's a matter of necessity. Yeah.
If you didn't see the caption in that video, that was Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson of North Carolina. He spoke on the first night of the RNC convention. Now, Mark Robinson is a unique individual in the fact that, he says some controversial things. This is very controversial what he says here, but he's not the only one.
Described. But number three, let me speak about the radical left. You and I have both been parts of faculties and faculty senates and understand that the left has taken over our institutions. The reason that they are apoplectic right now, the reason that so many anchors on MSNBC, for example, are losing their minds daily is because our side is winning. And so I come full circle on this response and just want to encourage you with some substance that we are in the process of the Second American Revolution, which will remain bloodless if the left allows it to be.
Now, if you want to know who that was Kevin Roberts. He's the head of the Heritage Foundation. He's the president of the Heritage Foundation. Now, who is the Heritage Foundation? The Heritage Foundation is a conservative think tank, basically, and is a sponsor of the Republican National Convention. It is also the author of what we call Project 2025. It was founded in 1973 during the Richard Nixon administration, and since then has exerted a strong influence over the Republican policy. Basically, they handed a playbook to Reagan back in the 80s, which he used as part of his policy as president of the United States. I don't know. I will assume they did the same thing for both Bushes. But that organization has existed since 1973. It's a very powerful organization. It includes groups like AIPAC and ALEC, if you know who ALEC is. They've done a lot of literally written bills for Congress that these congressmen have used in Congress. So it's a powerful organization. There are members who are former members of Trump administration who are probably going to be current members of Trump administration. Here's some things I will say about the Heritage Foundation that, to me, it seems that this is a mixture of several things. A very conservative states' rights groups, which is similar to, who, Ku Klux Klan and folks like that. It includes conservative Christian organizations, people who are like the Eagle Foundation and folks like that. They have been part of the Heritage Foundation. It also includes what we could call capitalist nationalists, people like Steve Bannon, even J.D. Vance to a certain degree is a person that's similar to that, but he is not part of this organization. They have people like that. So their policy reflects that conservatism. It basically reflects that conservatism that exists in the United States. So, what am I talking about here? Here's an organization that says it has this thing called Project 2025. They're talking about revolution, bloodless, hopefully, but at the same time, they're saying only if the left allows it. So that's a question we have to worry about when they say revolution. What is the radical change that's coming? If we are currently in a democracy, if we're currently in a country that has a constitution, what kind of revolution are we talking about? Is this similar to what happened during the Civil War? Uh, what kind of, it's a bloodless version. They're claiming this is going to be a bloodless version of that. We're going to take the country back to its founding principles. Well, in the founding principle, people who look like me were considered okay to be slaves in 3/4 of a majority of the country. So I don't think that's what we're looking at. I don't think that is what we want to be. They say they're looking for to open up the diversity of ideas by getting rid of diversity, equity, and inclusion. That makes no sense, right? That makes none whatsoever. So, lastly, this organization and folks like Kevin Roberts, they believe in presidential immunity because something that I should have posted here was the fact that he was talking about what recently happened in the Supreme Court, and they said it was a good ruling. Was the Supreme Court basically gave the president immunity for any during his job as in his official capacity as president of the United States. So there are a lot of things that he could not be prosecuted on based on his official post, right? Um, this organization, along with what I told you about Tim Scott, the words that you saw on the screen there are volatile or hostile. That can create a hostile environment where people are like, "I don't trust you. I don't want to be a part of what you're doing." This can also create people who are violent, who see this as an opportunity. Like, these people deserve to be whatever. That's wrong, and I'm telling you that's wrong. But I'm telling you, when people have fear, when they're scared, they choose things to stop their fears. People fear a Trump administration. We literally fear a Trump administration changing our country so radically and taking away the freedoms that we know, that we are currently worried about these things, that we are currently so worried about this, in fact, that some people are prone to violence. Same on the other side. They fear that this country is becoming something they don't like. There are people who are screaming. I heard this yesterday on the radio, on this black radio station. A black conservative got on there and talked about replacement theory. You know where replacement theory comes from? It comes from Nazis. It comes from white supremacists. But there's a black version of it as well. So this particular individual quoted one Umar Johnson, who talked about the fact that he feels that liberals are bringing in immigrants from other countries to replace black people, replace them in the voting roles, replace them in the working roles, to replace them in other situations. So this gentleman here said the same thing. Only issue I have with what he said is, again, that's more quote unquote violent rhetoric to me, because it's stoking fears, creating hate, because that's what it does. Is that the fact that most immigrants, when they finally become American citizens, end up voting Republican, right? Are they replacing them, or are the Republican parties getting new voters that they're finna kick out of the country, right? Pretty much. That's pretty much what's happening. Now, immigration affects us all, and yes, I do believe we need to make better immigration policy so we can stop some of the influx of people in the country. And it does hurt the security of the country. And it also, if we put a good immigration policy in place, we can shut down what's going on at the border. At the same time, I do not condone mass deportations of people, because that's just like what's going on in right now in Ukraine. What has gone on in places like what happened during World War II. It can lead to all sorts of devilish and evil things. When I hear that word mass deportation, we should be radically scared of such words and such phrases. But people in this country don't care. All they care about is what they say. They say they care about the price of eggs and things like this. People are suffering economically in this country, so they blame everything else for why they're suffering economically in the country, which is possible. There's a lot of things that our government is doing by ignoring the poor people of this country. And the Democratic Party has to do a better job of easing the fears of poor people and minority people in this country that feel that they have not done anything for them. We have to be more radical. We got to stop listening to the voices of the millionaires who don't really want to help us, but want to fill their pockets. That is the issue. It leads to people gravitating towards radical beliefs and radical ideas because they want to feed their babies. Just a thought. How do we stop violence? We got to stop stoking the fears. We've got to talk about the issues. It's necessary to talk about the issues. We need to tone down some of the rhetoric, but we do need to keep discussing the issues. This is how we fight to the very end until the election season, to whoever comes to power. That's how this works in our system. So, folks, I'm all out of time. I've talked a lot about this particular subject. I hope that what you saw here gives you some more information. I hope that you can formulate your own decisions and conclusions about this, because voting is coming.
You have been listening to Thought You Were Woke, No Speed Limit Podcast.